Hello, guys, and welcome back to my channel. I realized that I've been doing such a bad job of introducing myself every time I do one of these. So, for those who do not know, hi, my name is Kaya Nova. I am a singer songwriter, producer, a actual writer, and also going through the grueling process of trying to build my own media company called Grown Media. For, I guess you could say, over a decade, not to age myself, I have been navigating this craziness of living a multi-hyphenate creative life, coming from a background as an artist and essentially transitioning my passion into business skills, into a corporate career, into so many different avenues, and now just trying to continue grounding myself in my artistry, but also in my desire to be a prolific storyteller. And something that has been so real and honest for me lately is the fact that creating content is not the same as having a creative practice, and how important it is as an artist in today's world of social media and just putting yourself out there and having the responsibility of growing your own audience is really understanding where your creative practice fits in all of this and how to make sure that it still remains kind of like a safe, sacred space for you to explore what you're trying to create as an artist while also having the balance and the space to show up online and what that content looks like. One, I would just create a differentiation between what is a creative practice and how does that relate to creating content? Why are the two not the same thing? So, first and foremost, a creative practice is essentially like the time that you are spending to hone and explore your craft, right? This should essentially be like a daily practice, but for a lot of us that have grown up and gotten busy, it probably isn't an everyday thing anymore. But I remember when my creative practice was the strongest was literally when I was in school. So I went to college and graduate school for music. I went to Spelman College in Atlanta for undergrad, and I went to Berklee College of Music in Valencia, Spain for grad school. Of course, being a student, being a music student, anyone that's come from a music background or any art background where you've had to do practice or rehearsals, it ingrains in you this thing of every day you need to be touching your art in some way, not only because it makes you a better artist at the end of the day, but it also just creates a deeper relationship, more familiarity with your instrument, so that anytime you need to create something, you're not essentially starting from scratch, right? You're kind of starting from this grounded, familiar relationship that you already have with yourself and your artist mind. And I will admit, as I've gotten older, as I've had to navigate having a big girl job, starting my own business, balancing a social life, trying to make it to the gym, pretending to have a dating life because the child, that's a mess. But all these things that come up really do separate you from this creative practice. And then once you mix in this mandatory necessity that we all are feeling around showing up online and how do we tell our stories, that starts to take the place of what your actual creative practice is, because anyone that creates content understands how much work goes into this, how much time it takes to just make one video, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm trying to create these barriers around what is my time to focus on my practice versus what is the time to make content. And so, one of the ways that I have been doing that, one is making dedicated space for where my creative practice lives. So, I literally went to my local dollar store and I bought 4 composition notebooks to use strictly for my songwriting and my creative writing, because sometimes those two get mixed in. To help me kind of create more of this separation between the two, I really wanted to make an effort to create a tangible thing that I can pour into and spend time with this creative practice of mine. So now when I am writing day to day, I kind of have this visual place in my mind of okay, go pick up one of those white composition books. It's time to write. I don't know. That just has been what's working in my brain. And I'm also traveling with these notebooks. So anytime I feel inspiration, I just pause and write. no one's going to see what's in these pages until it becomes something. And I don't necessarily feel the need to like bring people into what that looks like as a form of content, other than telling y'all that, like, hey, I have 4 composition notebooks that I'm dedicating to songwriting. But you'll need to see what's in these pages. That is like one way that I'm really making the creative practice feel like a thing again and separate it from like creating content. Another thing that I have been doing is making sure that my content is as simple as possible, because it already takes a lot of time to like shoot something, talk to your phone, talk to your computer, and then just edit it. So if I'm also throwing in like effects and graphics and all of this in it, like, I'm really never going to get anything done. I have to remember that like creating content is a tool. It is like a part of community building and marketing, but it is not the thing, which brings me into like my third most important tip that I have been returning to over and over again recently is just remembering that the content is not the thing. The content Creating content is a way to bring visibility to the thing you're actually building, but it's not the thing. And so I am not ever trying to center my life around the ability to just create content all day. I'm trying to use content creation to shed light to what I am building as an artist and as a founder. And those are two completely different things, which then means that when I am creating content, I am making sure that it is more of a quality over quantity thing. I'm trying to make sure I'm being clear on like who I am, even when I introduce myself, making sure that I'm introducing myself in a way that really paints the picture of like what I'm trying to share by creating content. And I think something as simple as that really allows a split in my brain to where I'm able to say, like, my creative work is one thing, and how I am giving visibility to that creative work is a completely different thing. Another thing I will say about the difference between having a creative practice and creating content is that the creative practice is where you're able to explore in incubation and in silence. I am naturally like an introverted person. I've always loved to like create like in my bedroom or, like in a rehearsal room, like just very closed off space where it's just me and the creative energy flowing around so I can get something down. But then, and when it comes to creating content, that is again like my relationship to my community. Knowing that I have like space to be like this closed off, everything is sacred, everything is precious, kind of creative, and have that time to really just like learn, grow, and explore, while also stepping into the responsibility of how I'm marketing myself, how I'm telling my story, how I'm building my platforms, and how I'm making sure that the community I'm building is helping me sustain the work that I want to do. Um, these two parts have really been important, and they're always going to be important. They're always going to be necessary. Even if social media goes away tomorrow, this idea of like balancing your creative practice between how you like perform or exhibit your work or talk about it in the world is always necessary. So I feel like if you are someone that's getting too lost in the creative content to the point that you're not spending any time actually creating the thing that is your why, that is your whole reason of getting on the internet every day, um, create dedicated time for it. Get a special notebook. Get a special corner in your apartment or in your house where when you go over there, that is when you're locking it down and just focusing on being creative. Set a timer on your phone to just take an hour or take 15 minutes, however much time you need to get the work done. And always remember that what you're building in private is the art, it is the work, it is the reason. And what you're showing in public is the process, is, why you're doing it and like building community around that. But these two things don't need to be the same thing. And if you're really trying to retain your process as an artist while also finding the balance with how you are building your community, that is the best piece of advice that I can give you on that topic. So As always, if you want to follow more along with my journey as I am navigating my multi hyphenate life, I have a Substack called Growing Through It. And I'm also on all social platforms at the Kaya Nova, where I'm always talking about this stuff because creative wellness and balance and multi hyphenate career building is such a untalked about topic. And I am just excited to keep building community around that. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.